and then the environment was cleaned up.
The first time I was hearing about this stuff, it was totally new to me.
Erede with social impact consulting. Hello everyone, my name is Erede with Social Impact Consulting. I'm a development consultant with 20 years of experience working with NGOs, international NGOs, and bilateral agencies to work in project support, monitoring and evaluation, and civil society strengthening. So now, I saw that local NGOs lack the capacity to manage large-scale projects, which can in turn impact their various communities because they have the connection based on their backgrounds. So this made me create this channel so that I can add value to you for free once you subscribe to this channel and get notified of upcoming videos. I look forward to hearing from you. Hello everyone. How are you doing today? Welcome again to the Development Sector Series, which is Devsectorseries. Make sure you like and share this broadcast so we can reach more people. Because of you, we're able to reach a lot of development practitioners so that we can talk about how we maximize social impact. Now, if you're interested in being notified when we're live, join our mailing list so that you will be notified. Let me know where you're watching from, what state, what country, so that I can thank you personally. So follow and connect with me on all my social media handles for future updates. If you have any questions about the discussion, include in the comments, at the end of the discussion so that we can have a more robust conversation and it's interactive. Well, today we're having a special guest. Our guest today is Mrs. Chigbu, who is the Executive Director of the IREDE Foundation, an organization that provides support for child amputees and their families. Her story is so fascinating that it was featured on CNN's African Voices in 2019. I am so amazingly proud of this young lady. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share her video bio and then I will bring her right up. Who is the founder and executive director of the Erede Foundation. The foundation started from her personal experience with an amputee child. In 2012, IREDE Foundation was established to bring hope, joy, and purposeful living to all children living with limb loss, their families, and caregivers. Today, the foundation has provided over 187 artificial limbs to children within the ages of 1 to 18 years, invested in their families, creating multiple support systems. The Erede Foundation also conducts advocacy with their annual Out on a Limb walk. As a successful social entrepreneur, Crystal actively participates in other ventures that inspire society. One of which is a periodic media interview called Hope Grail. She interviews people who overcome their challenges to inspire others. Crystal's work has not gone unnoticed. January 2021, she received multiple awards from 25 organizations, communities, and companies for her contributions towards helping amputee children. She is also an Acumen Fellow, a program of leaders who understand what it takes to create change in our complex and interconnected world. She also has been invited to multiple regional events hosted by the African Union to contribute to social development policies. A graduate of biochemistry from the prestigious University of Lagos, Crystal kicked off her career in Procter & Gamble and rose through the ranks within the shortest time to become the regional manager overseeing multiple states in Nigeria. Allow me to introduce to some and present to others Crystal Chigbu, the founder and executive director of the IREDE Foundation.
Good afternoon, Crystal. Great to see you.
Good afternoon, Efwa. It's always a joy, having to connect with you and, really chat with you. Thank you for having me.
Since I started Devsectorseries, I've been stalking you to get an interview. You have been so busy maximizing social impact and really impacting lives, all over Nigeria. So well done.
Well done too, and I think it's a good time for me to let you know how what you're doing in the sector is so amazing, and we celebrate you and the amazing work that you've done since I met you in 2015 until now. Well done, Efwa.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think EDC will be proud of us. So we have to give Banky a shout out. Yay! Okay, so we're gonna get started. So what were your findings of children with disabilities after working to meet your daughter's needs? Because we know that, in terms of your story with Beulah, who I have met and is such a kind soul, so in terms of trying to work on interventions for your family, what were some of your discoveries?
The first thing that I discovered, Efwa, is that children, despite the disability they have or do not have, are the same. So all children are same, in spite of one challenge that one child has. So they're not different from one another. They are just all children, right? So that's the first fact that I had to accept and realize that. Whether it's a child with autism or a child with a limb deformity or a child that has no physical challenge, all children are the same. Secondly, I realized that children do adapt very easily. And working with, child amputees over the last 9 years, I've come to realize that. I've also been privileged to work with adults that have gotten amputated, either as a result of one thing or the other. And I realized that it's so easy to work with children because they're excited. They really want to just live their life to the fullest. So it's really amazing, working with them and realizing that it's easier for me to work with children because when they come in contact with help that they need, because they are still in their formative years, they are very hopeful and believing, and they just really want the change that you're making available for them. The third thing that I also realized, working with these children, is that when you come in contact with children with disability, they tend to have something, the adaptation that has happened in their body tend to help them to have some part of their bodies where they do not have that disability function best for them. So when you look at probably someone that, has visual impairment, and you probably find out that they're able to concentrate a little bit more. They're able to, use the other senses, that are functional very well. So each child, is unique. And I just realized that, working with them is so amazing. So I'll say those are some of the things that I found out. And I would just say that every child needs care, every child needs support, every child needs intentionality, whether they have a disability or not. So children are children, and everyone should be given equal access to education, equal access to health services, equal access to opportunities that every other child is, presented with.
Okay. Thank you for that extensive answer. Just saying that children are more open and they are more hopeful, so it's easier to work with them because of the energy that comes from them. That's really amazing, Crystal. So we're gonna move forward. So are there groups working on children with disabilities like the IREDE Foundation? And how have you been able to build these sustainable partnerships? When you started, was it a new frontier for children especially? And were there organizations you met, and how has that worked out for you?
The couple of other organizations doing things with children with disabilities, across different phases. When IREDE started, I would say we had a unique niche of working with child amputees. So no one, was working specifically with child amputees in Nigeria and across Africa, actually.
Really?
However, yes, across Africa, no organization was working with children that are amputated. So child amputees in general, no one was doing that across Africa. However, there are other organizations working with children with disabilities. And particularly, there's a current partnership and a coalition that we have of two other organizations, Festus Fajamilov Foundation and Children Development Center. And we got our support from Disability Rights Funds to actually advocate for inclusive education in Lagos State. And, working with these guys have been fantastic. There are a lot of other organizations. There's Let's CP Kids Learn, and they work with, children with cerebral palsy. There's another organization that is working with children with autism. There are a couple of organizations, even in the CP world. There are a lot of them. What we've done with partnership really is to see, usually because there's a tendency for someone to just reach out to me when you have a child with disability. So basically what we try to do is identify what kind of disability does the child have. And once we have identified the disability, then we start looking for the organizations that we can work together with to make this happen. Currently, we are also partnering. We're going to be doing some work with the Leprosy Mission in Niger State because they are working more in the Northeast. They are seeing more children, with amputations. So we are currently in talks and seeing how we can work together to deliver, something for the children in Zamfara and Maiduguri and the rest of the places to ensure that they're able to get artificial limbs. So yes, a lot of other groups that are working specifically with children with disabilities, and like I just mentioned, a few of them that we are already working together with. So we work closely with Children Development Center and Festus Fajamilov Foundation on the inclusive education project that we're working funded by DRF, and we also work very closely with Let's CP Kid Learn and Benola to work with children with CP.
I see. That's really interesting. I guess I put the cart before the horse in my question in here, but so we've talked about partnerships. So now, how do you identify? So what's your criteria for support? How do you identify the right candidates?
And thank you very much for that question. And I think every time, whether you're applying for grants, whether you're talking with prospective donors, everyone just really wants to know, how are you deciding? And even with the parents and even the general public, people want to know, how do you how do you decide on who you're working with? The first thing that I say is every child that is an amputee qualifies for our scheme, whether you can afford it or not, because we do three major things. The first one we do is education, which is where we're doing our advocacy and awareness program and sensitizations. And you don't have to be indigent to access that. So once you are an amputee, or even the general public, you qualify for us to be able to give you that information. The second thing we do is we do what we call Encourage, which is our support group program. Again, every parent of a child amputee in Nigeria, Africa, qualifies to be a part of that support group program. However, where we now start putting in the criteria is for those that cannot afford to get prosthetic limbs for their children by themselves. So the first thing is you have to be indigent, and indigent by our own terms, because we change the prosthetic limbs for the children till they are 18, is that you cannot sustain that child through that period. So if your child is, say, 2 years of age now, and then your child is going to be 18 in another 16 years, for 16 years, you're not able to. So you're probably living in the rural area, you don't have a job of your own. So then we consider that. The second thing is age. We only provide limbs for children that are under 18. When we have adults that need the limbs, then for the adults, we charge a token, or we work with other organizations that work with older people to ensure that those older people, those organizations can make it available for them at either affordable rates or just for free, depending on what they do. So pretty much, you have to be an amputee, you have to be under 18, you have to be indigent, and then you qualify for us to support you in one way or the other.
That is remarkable, Crystal. And those requirements are pretty basic. So well done. So I'm just going to go into the next question. It says that the IREDE Foundation, you've provided almost 200 prosthetic limbs to date for children and impacted thousands of families. So you've talked about advocacy. So how have you been able to use some of those details for some of the data that you've gathered for advocating for the rights of children with disabilities?
Can you take that question again? I didn't get the question.
Okay, no worries. I said you've provided almost 200 limbs to children and impacted thousands of families. How has that translated to advocacy? Because getting all that information is data. So how has that translated to, because you've said you've responded in some various questions about advocacy. So how have you been able to transition into advocacy, and how has that impacted your work?
Thank you so much, Efwa. So initially, we just started giving limbs, which in just giving limbs. However, we realized that giving the limbs to the children wasn't enough. Some of them were not accepted into schools. Some of them, even though they were accepted into the schools, they couldn't cope because there was a lot of stigmatization in their schools. So we realized that we needed to start doing a lot of sensitization and driving behavioral change. So initially, that was all that we were about. However, as we realized that we had more of them that the schools were not giving support to, then we started checking what's happening with inclusive education. And so we realized that even though there are laws in place to support persons with disability, both in Lagos State and even at the national level, we realized that they were not being implemented. So currently, our focus is to drive accessibility to education and having quality education for children with disability. So the way it's worked is because of the data that we have gathered, and we've realized that it's really peculiar to children with disabilities. So pretty much you go into the schools, people still think that if you have a CP, it's contagious. So because of that, they don't want such children in their school. And even the needed support that the children should have in the school, because we are mainstreaming education, they are not getting the support. They are not qualified teachers and everything. So pretty much right now, we are the one project we are doing on United for Inclusive Education is driving on the budget level. We're working with the government to see, do they have the right budget in place for education, and particularly children with disability? Because, the budget is probably there for education generally. And specifically in Lagos State, we even have special schools or inclusive schools, they are called, where, you have teachers to give support to children with disabilities in those schools, the right kind of environment for the children. However, the question is, do we have the right budget in place to support the schools? So that's where we are driving our advocacy, but it's majorly started because we saw that there is a gap between the children, the government, and the schools, and the policies to really support. Hence why, we're advocating for implementations of those laws, ensuring that, there's the right budgeting. But all of this came from the fact that we realized that giving limbs alone was not enough, but ensuring that we have the right policies in place to be able to ensure that our children, even though they have disabilities, have the right access that they should have. And, eventually in life, it's also going to translate to ensuring that they have the right access to employment. They have the right kind of transportation to support them. All of this cannot happen if we don't have the right policies in place and these policies implemented.
Interesting, because I, based on my, I teach a lot of advocacy courses, and a lot of that data, in terms of providing those services, it's just a transition into advocacy, because you want a situation where you're able to make an impact societally, and hopefully being able to scale. Now, you've talked about your advocacy and the process. What has been the response been like? And I know you talk a lot about what you're doing with the Lagos state government. How have they responded to your advocacy efforts?
The first thing basically is, I'm particularly excited about what's happening. It's slow, but we're getting some responses. So the first thing is the Lagos State Special People's Law, was enacted in 2011. And 2011 till date, sometimes last year, end of last year, the Lagos State Governor promised, to give us a special assistant on disability, and that was also implemented. Currently, we're doing a lot of work with the Lagos State Office of Disability Affairs, which is the agency that is really working, with persons with disabilities to ensure that, the government is responding. So we are beginning to see some responses. And then on the national level also, we currently have the law in place, which was also, it was initially a bill and then was passed into law in 2019. So all of these things, I would say, is the government's response, right, to all of the advocacy that not just IREDE is doing, but, across the disability community, because a lot of people fought for these laws to be in place. So I would say the government making these laws, these bills become laws, and, ensuring that it's in place is a good thing, is a great intervention, and that's fantastic. Where we need more support is definitely the implementation of those laws, because the laws are there, the policies are there. People are becoming more aware, because that's what civil society is doing, right? We're ensuring a lot of people get to know that these laws are in place. We're ensuring that organizations of persons with disabilities are more involved, in a couple of things. So, like, one of the things that we are driving is OPDs being really involved with budget and planning, across all levels. However, I would say we need a quick work to also still happen with the government, to ensure that the implementation of these laws, happen very, very quickly. There's work that is happening, but it's just pretty slow, like literally, like snail speed, really. But I would say, the laws even being in place is good response, from where we are as an organization.
That's really impressive, and I think it what you're saying transcends most thematic areas here in Nigeria, and I'm sure possibly in sub-Saharan Africa. Is we have these great laws, we have these great strategies. The big issue is implementation. It's a huge issue. So I'm going to talk to the audience right now. So look, if you have any questions for Crystal, please put it in the comment section below, so that she will be happy to answer it. Like we've all heard, when she started almost 10 years ago, there was no organization in sub-Saharan Africa working with child amputees and providing prosthetic limbs to them. So if you have any questions for Crystal, please include it in the comment section, so that we'll be able to just have an interactive discussion. So I'm going to just segue to, so has there been any scalable form of support for children with disabilities? I watched your the documentary on CNN's African Voices. Again, wonderful work, great job. Being an impact maker. Now, you said you looked at the price points of prosthetic limbs for children, and it's quite pricey. So you were able to identify ways that it can be locally made, and it will have just as much of a quality for so that you can reach more children. Have there been other efforts in terms of whether it be the donor community, the private sector, and the government sector with regards to scalability for children with disabilities? Is there anything coming down the pike that we've moving forward?
Yes, I'll focus more on prosthetic limbs and all, and then I'll talk about children with disabilities in general. Yes, I mean, post that conversation with CNN, of course, we have our lab, which keeps getting upgraded. We've gotten some support from the private sector, really, to scale, to see how we can reduce the cost of, to get our lab to continue to function, and see how we continue to do more research to see how to reduce that has happened to us as Erede is one of the reasons we have been able to do much more limbs. It's because we've been able to cut down the cost of per limb. I mean, before now we'll have an average limb cost us between 1.2 million to 1.5 million, but we've been able to reduce that cost to about 1 million, and it's even going lower because depending on the type of amputation, we're able to even reduce further, and we're having more children more limbs that that we can actually recustomize for other children, which is a good thing. We're also having trainings, and more prosthetic people are coming into the field. Because one of the things is when you have one person dominating the market, what happens basically is the price is really high. And so because we are training and working more with more prosthetists, we are seeing that the cost is even coming down even further. So yes, that's that bit. But yes, on scalability across children with disabilities, it's not just in tools, that we need things for children with disability. We also need human resource. So one of the things that is happening across the communities, we're having more occupational therapists, we are having more what do you call them now? We're having more special needs teachers, we're having more sign language interpreters, and these are all the resources that children with disabilities need to be able to function and work better. So I would say yes, there's a lot of scale that is happening, especially on the human resource bit, and then also getting more tools at affordable prices for the children to use.
Okay. That is really remarkable in terms of making sure that it's more scalable, and now I'm making sure that the market is more receptive for services for child amputees, and also with children with disabilities. So again, to the audience, I see one question has come through, so we're going to be waiting for more questions coming up. So we're going to be at our final question before we transition to the audience. So audience, please put your questions in the comment section so that we can continue this conversation before Crystal gives us her final thoughts. So now, now I'm going to be talking about pretty much a bit of a theory of change for you. So what would be your ideal world concerning children with disabilities? What is the world as it should be for them?
Okay, that is you touching on the things that really touch me, because I think when it comes to the ideal world, I just really go on and on and on. The first thing is a world where, especially in Africa at large, where children with disabilities are accepted, they are not discriminated against, they are not stigmatized against, they They're not thrown away by their parents. They're accepted as the gifts that they are. And, they have an enabling environment to live their lives limitlessly. And why that is something that I really crave for and I really want to see, across Africa is because today a lot of people still give birth to, children maybe with congenital issues, or maybe along the line the child becomes, have a disability or the other. And the first thing that comes to their mind is they don't want people to know about it. They want to throw away these children, and really when you start probing and checking, it's because there's no enabling environment. Once you are not, in the class of the rich and you cannot afford it, you are probably unable to take care of a child. For children with disability to thrive are institutional, both health related or education based. So an average person really will not be able to afford it. So take, for instance, if you have a child, that has CP, that child probably needs therapy 3 to 5 times a week. Um, Needs physiotherapy, and occupational therapist needs to go through surgery. And so if we don't have the health facilities to support and make this happen, then the child or throw the child away or not let people know about it. So I'm really looking forward to that world where children with disabilities will be able to live limitless lives. They'll be able to live independent lives in spite of their disability. And this is because, barriers are removed for them and they have such an enabling environment to make it happen.
Mm. Excellent, which is that is really something, because with our society in Africa, we when you have a child with disability, you tend to think maybe there's something you did wrong, you don't want anybody to know, and then you even the parent may feel like they will be stigmatized, that maybe there was something wrong with them. You know how this our
And
um
not maybe
our
they are actually
society is.
stigmatized against.
Hmm,
They are
yes.
stigmatized against. The parents have to deal with a whole lot, and it's really so really an environment where there's so much awareness and support for children and persons with disabilities, because it's these children that will eventually grow old to become the adults with disabilities. So where education is mainstreamed, and if I can really go on and on, where those will be the things that really I would love to see in the ideal world, where your child and my child can go to school without, being discriminated against because they have one disability or the other.
We are. Hi, Crystal. Are you there? The network bit of, having a bit of network challenges, but
I'm right here. I wasn't sure whether
okay.
the network was from your side or my end, so I
It
was
was
just.
yes, it was from my end, and
Oh,
so
sorry about that.
it's really been interesting, and thank you guys for hanging in there with us. I'm sure you got some really good stuff from Crystal in terms of her theory of change, in terms of having equal rights to education, and then really an enabling environment as a society for children with disabilities, so that they can just grow up and become high functioning adults. Because to be very honest with you, some of the smartest people in the world are persons with disabilities, whether you can see it physically or whether it's mental or psychological. I'm a very big proponent for that. So we're gonna go to the audience. I have a question from this is Aisha Abdullahi. She actually is coming to us from Sokoto State. So she said, just to ask, you mentioned about working in Zamfara, and the thing, there is no structure of leprosy mission in the state. So what are the modalities for engagement?
Thank you very much, Aisha. Pretty much, one of the things that we work with most is we work with volunteers across different locations. I'm aware that, leprosy mission, even though they're not resident in Zamfara State. One of the things that they currently do is they go there on the missions from time to time, and they have a group of people that they work with on ground. So even though we have our office in Lagos, we work across different locations. What we try to do is identify different volunteers, and we have different volunteers, across our scheme. And then these volunteers are the ones that do the execution for us on ground. And much later, we do a back check with when we're doing our M&E, to check if the work that we've done over time, because we don't just give the limbs and leave the children. We go
I
back
see.
3 months after, we go back 6 months after. And even if, probably the volunteer we used to do the execution is not the same person we used to go and double check to see how the, beneficiary or the clients, as we call them now, are using the limb. So yes, we are aware that they currently do not have a structure on ground, but they also have, volunteers that work across from time to time. And then when they go for their missions, we use that period to execute the limbs that we need to give out at that time. And I hope
Okay.
that answers your question. But Aisha, I hope also we can connect, because it looks to me like you're on ground in Zamfara, and probably we can do some work together and make change happen together in Zamfara.
Okay. So I think she made a comment in response. She said,
Okay, I think we lost FY again, but I see your comment. I believe such advocacies should also include ministries and parastatals, that are currently. Okay, you're back.
yes, I'm back. I'm back.
I was just
Yeah.
I was just reading her comments. I was reading her
Mhm.
comments out and trying to
Yes.
react to that.
Let me just show that again. So yeah. So she was saying that the advocacy should include ministries and parastatals, and um, dealing with buildings, so that all contacts are inclusive. Trying to get a better understanding of
No,
that
I think
comment.
basically what Aisha is saying is, that we should ensure that our advocacies also include parastatals and ministries that are dealing with buildings, so that
I
contracts are
see.
inclusive. And,
Ah, I see.
Thank you, Aisha. You're correct. It's one of the things that we're doing. I think sometimes last year we were actually talking with architects, because they are the ones that, work on structures and, the design phase, and they're doing that. And currently, we were able to give some inputs, with the current plan that Lagos State just did on tourism, to ensure that even that is inclusive. So thank you very much. I agree with you, and we just continue to do more of that.
Okay, okay. And I think she just made another comment that I thought was really, that I think really buttresses what you've been saying for the past 40 minutes. It says we should empower persons with disabilities so that they can speak for themselves. And she said that that's one of the major challenges in the North, is empowering them to speak for themselves.
Thank you so much, Aisha. And I mean, I think Aisha is just so on point. One of the things that we did with the, inclusive education, work that we did here in Lagos State was to actually do a lot of engagement and trainings for the organizations of persons with disabilities, which usually is a cluster of persons with disabilities themselves, and to train them and help them to know how to be involved with budget and planning, and as it pertains to them. So I agree with you. We cannot continue to create that ideal world for persons with disabilities without them being included and making the decisions on their own. Even here at the IREDE Foundation, when we're coming up with programs and working on projects, the children that we've worked with, before, are a critical part of, our design phase. So we involve them, we listen to them. What are their inputs? What are you talking about? And then really we are helping teach them how they can be the voice, wherever. As per the major challenge in the North, we keep seeing how we can partner with other people and see how to make it happen. Thank you so much, Aisha.
Okay, thank you, Aisha. This was a very very engaging conversation concerning persons with disabilities, especially in northern Nigeria. So, Crystal, do you have any final thoughts for us?
I think the first thing that I'm going to say is all of us can play a part in ensuring that we have a world that is inclusive, a world where persons with disabilities can live independent and limitless lives. And usually I do a call out, and I ask people to, when you have information, please put the information out there, because people say, oh, how can we be a part of what you're doing? How can we support? Sometimes it's not even just in making funds available. It's in sharing the information within your network, so that people that know little about disabilities get to know a little bit more. So when you see the work that we do, not just the IREDE Foundation, all the organizations of persons with disability, you do well to share it, because what you're indirectly doing is you're helping drive behavioral change and making sure that more people become aware, of disabilities. The second thing is to let you know that disability is not a disease. And persons with disabilities are able to live independent lives. They don't need your help, and I put help in quotes. They need your support. What you can continue to do for persons with disabilities is remove the barrier. So I give you an example. It's not necessarily giving arms to someone, but just imagine that maybe someone, for instance, on a wheelchair is working in your organization, and you make sure that there are ramps where easily the wheelchair can just be wheeled through. That's you removing the barrier, because if there are staircases, the options you start thinking of is, how do I carry this person? So every day as you live your life, help us think of, how can I remove the barrier for the person with disability? Because what you would then be doing is giving support versus just arms and helps for persons with disabilities. And finally, we've talked a lot about we've talked about accessibility, we've talked about inclusion, we've talked about non-discriminative acts and behaviors. I just want you to be the change in your own community. So thank you so
Exactly.
much. Thank you, Efwa.
Thank you so much, Crystal. This is really very enlightening for all of us, because when I came to Abuja and started working on international development projects, there was now the working with persons with disabilities, and there was always a saying that, listen, the persons with disabilities want to be supported based on a rights-based framework, not on a
Yeah.
charity-based framework, which is
Now,
exactly what you've mentioned here, and making sure that there is inclusion. And of course, as you're already aware, the Disability Act has been passed. Now it's implementation time, and trying to get that broken down, and that it affects all citizens, and that we're able to make sure that we're able to remove the barriers with the support of the laws of the land, which of course includes the Disability Act. Again, Crystal, thank you so much for your time, and I'm so glad I was able to get you to join us at Devsectorseries.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you, thank you, thank you for what you do. I think Dev Sector Series is amazing, and everyone within the sector should be a part of this, so that we continue to get the right information that we need, to be better in the sector and to drive development in our world.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. And hopefully I'm able to be that connector for all of us. Thank you so much. And have a good one, okay? Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. I'm sure you guys enjoyed that interview with Crystal Chigbu. I've been trying to get her on Devsectorseries for a while. She is extremely busy making sure that we have more support for child amputees, and even advocating for the rights of children with disabilities. Again, thank you all so much for watching. Just a few announcements. The e-learning platform is going to be launched very soon, within a couple of weeks. If you want more information about that, if you're on Facebook, just slide in my DM on Social Impact Consulting. I'll be able to give you what you need. And if you're on LinkedIn, please slide in my DM about the e-learning platform that is coming up. Please again subscribe to the YouTube channel, Social Impact Consulting. We're going to be having some content coming up very soon that I think you all will be very excited about getting to know. Again, I'm very excited. Our next interview is going to be from the Executive Director of the Nigerian Network of NGOs. I am so super excited about that interview. It's going to be next week, Wednesday at 12 noon again. And so those of you who are have just started your NGO, have emerging NGOs, or are just interested in international development and civil society, please come on down and join us. So I look forward to seeing you next week. And come on, guys, let's change the world together.